Good evening, everyone. Welcome to an after Christmas Monday night customs analyst desk. I'm your host, Doom Geek,
Hello, Customs crew. It's your boy Illuminati.
and welcome to yet another way to analyze our gameplay and see what exciting plays passed. We have a lot to cover today, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. What are we looking at here?
We've got two very interesting team compositions here. Blue team leaning towards the poke slash pick hybrid. We've got really good poke coming from the Kaz and the Victor. But the pick, the Blitzcrank here probably committing a little bit to a sort of a pick style defense. He's definitely going to fall off. The Tristana, I think, is a late game scaler, so we'll see if we make it to the part of the game where Tristana will turn online. How about Red Team? What do you see about their composition?
Red Team has a little bit of pick with some engage. We have the Vigar and the Thresh here able to land some people range. We have the Sivir here, who's also able to use her ulti to actually kick fights off. But I also like the Illaoi pick into the Blitzcrank. If the Blitzcrank grabs Illaoi doesn't have the way to close the gap there other than the Sivir right now. And if Illaoi can get onto the blue team, especially with all those squishies, they can wreak havoc. Same thing with the Kazakhs there. If the Kazakhs can go ahead and sneak around what I suppose is going to be a frontline Urgot and Blitzcrank, Kazakhs can also just pop those mages and Tristana. So I actually kind of like Team 2 a little more. I think there's a little more diversity there with the ability of engaging and picking, whereas Team 1 I think is pretty reliant on the poke and the pick that they have.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I do think, there's going to be a few factors that really come into, does Tristana come online? How many blitz hooks, that sometimes we've talked about how the simpler game plan is often successful in custom. So, definitely those blitz hooks can be an easy way to win some team fights.
For sure. Let's go ahead and jump into our first clip now. First thing we're looking at here, it's pretty early on in the game. Both teams haven't really made too much headway here. Let's go ahead and just kick the clip off here and kind of walk our way through it. So right now, red team's pushed up pretty far here, and we can kind of see here with both teams kind of fishing for things. Red team showing off their incredible wave clear. Look how fast the Sivir clears the wave here. This is probably why red team's pushed up. Blitzcrank positioning really aggressively, are trying to look for the hook. Notably not hooking the Illaoi, kind of maybe the teams letting know. You have Blitzcrank and Thresh trading hooks with the Vigar dropping a cage. The cage catching a lot of folks here, and immediately Urgot goes and gets popped. Urgot's not that tanky just yet. Now we have a 5v4 with red team still pretty low here, trying to land some poke here, and the wave pushes are moving forward again. And let's see what blue team can do here under tower. Looks like they've been under tower most of the time. Blitzcrank, and Blitzcrank managed to get the hook on Thresh, barely making there. The lockdown from the Vigar there managed to make it, but look at that Vigar, look at that Vel'Koz ult, lighting people up from a distance here. Urgot now managed to be back up, going to try to go in, and a late Illaoi ult there isn't quite enough there. It looks like blue team's ultis all kind of came on sync a little faster than red team's, ultimately resulting in a blue team coming ahead here. Let's hop back to the beginning there and see if there's any other things we notice here, Illuminati.
Yeah, two moments I really want to focus on. Let's keep playing, and I'll tell you when we get to the first one. Obviously, some grand positioning by the two players going for picks here, and I think all of this teamfight is fine. This moment here, when we get the ult from Sivir, there's a huge teamfight buff for her team, and we can see the blue team doing exactly the right strategy, which is completely pulling out of the teamfight. And I think this is one of the things that makes red team feel a little antsy and lead to their next mistake. Here, as we see, the positioning here is really interesting. So of course Blitz gets a hank, Thresh gets caught, and that's fine. especially in today's ARAM, you know, with the ability for Thresh to just respawn in a bit and come back with the teleporter, I think this is really not a big deal. But when we see the backline kind of push up here against the very healthy, you know, poke champs of blue team on the top of the screen, the top left of the screen, I think that's really where we get the team fight difference. And I definitely understand their anxiousness on the trigger finger here after the Sivir ult to wanna to fight, but I really, you know, commendations to the blue team for making the right calls in positioning for both of those fights.
Yeah, I think you're on the money there. When I think it's less that red team is unable to follow up. Well, it's more that blue team recognizes what's the safe distance they need to be at and manage to play that distance the whole time. Red team really, before going to Champs Select, I felt like they might have had the range to those picks, but once that cage and hook goes down, they really feel like they're pretty low range here, and then blue team is able to kind of keep their distance and play it safe. See if this
I think that's right. I think that's right, and we're really hoping, you know, the red team can coordinate those Sivir and Illinois ults to get, you know, massive team fight damage that will turn this game around.
See what happens in the next clip. So we progressed a little further. Blue team starting to pull ahead just a little bit here. Red team once again in the same situation where they've pushed up and they're approaching red team tower. Notice how blue team tower. Notice how healthy blue team tower is. Resh gets a big hook on the Urgot with a follow-up cage, but not a huge follow-up damage on the cage itself from Vygar. Poking here from the Kazakhs onto blue team. At this point, a great hook on the Victor. Huge attempts to go ahead and follow up and kill the Victor. Victor finally goes down here, but at the same time trading here with the Urgot. The Urgot here is trying to follow up here, and now blue team trying to go ahead and make the most of it. Now blue team still again will number Urgot with an aggressive flash in 3v1. Vel'Koz and Blitz falling back here. Blitzcrank full health basically running away here. Tough times with blue team now kind of like making it rough. Red team still collapsing. Back to 3v1 situation on the Blitzcrank. Vel'Koz landing an ulti there near the end there, but unable to clean up. Wow, that was a quick turnaround. Ultimately, with red team coming out ahead a little bit. Let's go to the beginning of that and really figure out like why. Because at the beginning, I thought that the hooks, at the catches that red team had would have caused a bigger damage, but it ended up coming out pretty roughly even at the end there.
I agree, David, and there's a few plays here I want to point out. Early on, we don't have Blitzcrank in the fight, and I think that's really the moment for Red Team to potentially think about pressing their advantage and going for big picks. Yeah, at this point in the fight, we've got Blitzcrank already teleporting back, and I think that'll make a bit of a difference. We've also just seen, if you see that yellow sparkle in the middle of your screen, we've seen Comfy Bunny flash in for a Q, and I think that's a questionable choice here, given all the skill shots on blue team. I really think holding flash for a more critical moment for survivability probably is a better choice. Jumping into the scene and moving forward a bit. All right, so we see the team really commit to Victor, and I do think that makes some sense. Victor is doing a ton of damage this game and ending up with most of the kills. Canadian Moose here on the Kazakhs. I mean, playing like a bruiser, pretty incredible to like be in the middle of that team fight, surviving, doing that much damage. I mean, pretty incredible for an assassin to be doing what this Kazakhs is doing. But yeah, I mean, Blitzcrank, you know, to your point, not quite sure what he's supposed to be doing outside of trying to get picks. Very not clear about his role in the team fight part of this game. So. You know, hope Michael's coaching service is open after this one.
Yeah, that Blitzcrank comic there really resonates with me. I feel like I can count on my hand. Now I forget about hand, maybe like 2 fingers. How many times the Blitzcrank actually autos in that. So I think the Blitzcrank needs to go fully commit to the frontline role. You can do the pick, you can do the frontline, but at the very least be there for your rest of your team if it's that squishy. But we'll see. Maybe this will change as we progress through the rest of the game. So we enter our next clip of this, and we see that the game now, blue team is now starting to pull quite a bit ahead here. Blue team now is starting to go ahead and already claimed one tower, and we open immediately with a Thresh, with a hook by Blitzcrank on a Thresh. A Cage here follow up to protect the team here. And Sivir getting killed out in the crossfire there by the Victor. This Victor poke very impressive here. Oh, and the chain in run the Thresh here, trying to go and collapse. A fear on the Lowy might be able to take her out, but the Urgot does pay for that. The Vigar landing a full combo to pop the Vel'Koz. We now have a hunting Kha'Zix, the exhausted 3v1. Great knockback by the Tristana, but the Snowball still managed to take her out. Now we have a hunting Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix tracing down this Victor. Ghosted, fortunately, to try to avoid the isolation damage here. But where's Blitzcrank? Let's go ahead and find out. Blitzcrank appears to be now alone, almost full health, attacking the tower here. And now 2v1 against the tower, the Blitzcrank will go down. I think at that point, if the Blitzcrank would have stuck with the Victor, maybe they could have taken out and at least prevented the isolation damage on Victor. But that actually played out pretty quick here. Illuminati, what other insights do you have?
You know, I really want to call out two players here, the Thresh and the Blitzcrank, both playing kind of pick-focused champions, and you know, both the wins and the mistakes that they're making. I think the Thresh flash here, I think Thresh should be a little bit more comfortable dying, and also, you know, going for a grab. It's not awful in this situation, but I just want to point out, you know, like with Okni, you know, getting bursted down in this position, what's really happening in these fights is that the blue team, using their superior range, is able to really poke down some of the squishiers. And I think Thresh here needs to be focused on keeping his flash, keeping his Q ready for those moments where the squishy chain members of blue team push forward to poke. So you see Yaboy Dwayne there, for example, getting that poke off, and certainly there's something to be said for, you know, Okni's positioning, but I think Thresh can have a huge role in protecting champions by keeping that threat available. I think it makes it easier when Victor sees that Thresh Q is down to step up and do that poke. So sometimes, you know, the best ability is the ability not used. Now, then going to that other point here about the Blitzcrank, I mean, the juke, if you can jump back to this moment where Blitzcrank just goes every direction trying to figure out where that Kha'Zix goes. Again, we need to send this Blitzcrank to school, because he does not know what's happening in this game.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I was playing Blitzcrank. Yeah, I mean, look, he's following. He uses E, he uses his R. He's trying everything he can to peel, but he just is like completely confused on like where the heck this Kha'Zix went. And at this point, it just gives up and says, "Well, I'm not gonna make it back to Victor in time, so I'm just gonna die and teleport back."
There.
So,
I know
yeah.
we gave Blitzcrank a pretty hard time, but as you're mentioning before with the Thresh here, I do think that the Thresh positioning there will actually play a role in the rest team as well. We can see at the very beginning, just like you were saying, maybe here in this particular situation, we almost needed like the Thresh and the Kha'Zix to exchange roles here, because if we start like at the very beginning of the fight, we'll see a moment where the Thresh is actually like behind. The Thresh here is kind of the front line a little bit, but then flashes away, like you said. And now look who's in the front. We have Kha'Zix up in the front. Why is Kha'Zix all the way up in the front here? Thresh should be in the one front. But Kha'Zix recognizes, hey, I have to do my job. My job is to go ahead and get on the back line and low health people. That's my job. So Thresh, you better be there. And Thresh isn't there. So I think both teams' front lines, in the form of Thresh and Blitz, could use a little more like gusto to engage there and be the front line. Let's move to our last clip now. So if we look at our last clip here, we go ahead and start off once again. The teams are sieging here, looking for a way to get in. Blitzcrank getting a huge hook on Vigar here. Now 45. Another great follow-up by both ultis by Vel'Koz and Victor here. Playing around the debris really well. The debris is creating a lot of space for blue team unexpectedly. Red team already super low, and this point a huge cleanup by blue team. Blue team going in. Will Tristana be able to kill this Thresh under tower? Lands a hook here. Maybe he's gonna go, and the exhaust I think is gonna actually make the. Oh, they still managed to get it, but Tristana does die here. Blue team takes the tower and the rest of the game there. Illuminati, that was a pretty crazy end.
Yeah, you know, not a whole lot to say about this one. I think red team's in a very difficult position. They need to figure out how to get their the Kha'Zix in to do some isolation damage. But with the ADC starting to fight so low against such a poke-focused poke-focused enemy team. Maybe, you know, there's also a decision to be made about the ADC just, you know, inting it and trying to get back into the fight with full health. But it's definitely a tough fight, and, you know, I'd argue maybe the game was decided before this one.
Yeah, with the blue team getting so far ahead at that point, we had Triss, Victor scaled up too. So yep, at the end of the day, blue team managed to take this one, and we'll go ahead and see what other exciting gameplay we'll have this week. Before we go out, I want to go ahead and shout out to our MVP this week. It was a tough decision, kind of flip back and forth in our conversation, but we really wanted to call out Pious Hippo's Vel'Koz here. The positioning from the Vel'Koz was able to really make red team's life quite miserable and unable to move forward and collapse with their plan of the low range Lowy. So we know that there's plenty of folks who contributed greatly to the game, but we want to give a shout out to Pious Hippo there. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up this week's show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Doom Geek.
And this is Illuminati.
Catch you on the Abyss.